right, I want to do this one unfiltered. I want to try to see if I can do this one. No fucking edits. Let's go. But we're gonna talk about the factions part 2 delay, and we have to put a little history behind it because, you know, I'm a big fan of Naughty Dog. I'm a big fan of Last of Us, factions, whatever. I've been playing factions for several years. You know, people might not think, or you might have these like single player enthusiasts who might not even care about factions, might not even care about multiplayer or co-op, and that's fine, but I do. I thought factions was amazing. You know, it was a very nice, slower paced, tactical survival multiplayer where you played as 4 people in a squad and you have to go out and eliminate the enemy team. There was supply raid, which is like deathmatch until your lives ran out, and then at the end of the round, you know, whoever has the most lives over the other opponents will win. And then you have elimination, which is single life, so if you die once, you're dead for the entire round. And then you had interrogation, which was opening the lockbox of the enemy teammate, something like capture the point or objective, and once you open up the enemy lockbox, the match is over. Factions introduced several cool things, like the fact that you could craft in mid-match and make weapons, molotovs, nail bombs, and just obliterate the enemy team if you played right. And executions, you know, you could run up and shank a motherfucker in the kidney. It was cool, like pumping their head off with a shotgun. I just love the brutality of The Last of Us being implemented in The Last of Us multiplayer, and it was addicting, just like Uncharted multiplayer. It was addicting, it had a fascination to it, and I just played competitively over several years with this multiplayer. It's fun with friends, it's still fun to go back to. I'm not sure if the servers are like super active as they used to be, but if you remember correctly, things got hella smooth when they introduced the quality of life improvement with the 60 FPS version of The Last of Us Remastered. That was great for the multiplayer because it migrated, it rolled in smoothly with the multiplayer. Now granted, the multiplayer was not perfect. There was still some questions with the hitboxes in certain matches, parts where I got hit by absolutely nothing and shit going on and people getting exploded upon by large radius molotovs. But that was the game back then. That's how things were coordinated. That's how it went. It was a dog eat dog world. Perks and everything, micros, I remember the complaints about that and how people thought that was overpowered. I just picked the neck break perk, and I would say crafting was kind of OP as well. You had more perks for crafting and getting that shotgun early, and people just running around doing that shit. I understand, it happens, it fucking happens, but I was still gun on gun botting people with the base loadouts for a long time before it was like, hey, if I can't beat them, join them. Then we got whiff of the multiplayer supposedly being implemented in The Last of Us Part 2 and then being taken out later on because apparently Part 2 was very ambitious, and then the multiplayer also followed suit as well for Factions Part 2. So they were like, hey, we're sorry, but the multiplayer will not be included in The Last of Us Part 2, which was pretty devastating, and those stupid opinions started to appear where it's like, oh, who cares about multiplayer? All we want is the base game and that's it. But there was a community for the multiplayer. There were people constantly playing that shit for years. I'm talking like almost a whole ass decade, if not more. I'm not sure of the exact estimate, but I know that Factions was played for probably like 10 or something years. It had to be. It was super popular. I know it stayed for a long time with that one sole iteration. Despite them removing the multiplayer from The Last of Us Part 2, there was still a lot of people looking forward to it. They spent 4 years in development for this, and it comes with an internal delay. So reading Naughty Dog's message, The Last of Us fans, we know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our Last of Us multiplayer game. By this point, people are pissed. I understand, because all they got in those 4 years was some concept art. There was gameplay of Factions 2, but it was leaked and it wasn't really in the most polished, presentable state and shit. Like it was real rough, but it had Last of Us Part 2 melee, which I kind of appreciated. Well, it had the double gun butt shoulder thing that you could do and beat people up with, but it looked promising from what they were doing. It was more of building on top of the original foundation, which was Factions Part 1. We're incredibly proud of our studio and all the work they have done thus far, but as development has continued, we realize what is best for the game is to give it more time, citing the internal delay after 4 years. Now you figure, after 4 years, you gotta show some gameplay. A gameplay trailer, just concept art isn't going to cut it. I understand the frustration there. And then there was this tweet by Jason Schreier, which I will pepper in now, and he said, Naughty Dog has significantly scaled down its team on the Last of Us multiplayer project, sources say, as it reassesses the game following Bloomberg's request for comment. The company put out a Twitter statement today saying the game was delayed, and it was due to some conflicting values between Sony and Bungie's opinion on live service multiplayer. Now, the way I see this is Bungie has a point. I'm not surprised that Sony is taking their input at face value, and Jim Ryan wants these new live service multiplayer offerings to succeed in the long term, wanting that Fortnite money, Destiny 2 money. They want that longevity in their live service games. So why not ask the opinion of Bungie, who made one of the most critical and successful arena shooters of all time in the multiplayer landscape, Halo, utilizing those elements from the past and making it all invigorating for the future. Halo is a brand of multiplayer that is talked about endlessly, all the time, 24/7. One of the great reinventions of multiplayer with arena shooters is Halo. And then you have Destiny 2. That game is a live service juggernaut, constantly getting updates, very important to that community. Therefore, their opinion is valuable. So Bungie said, you know what, reassess all this, fix all this, because what you need is longevity in the long term. And I think what Naughty Dog wanted to do is focus on this project a little bit for the multiplayer and then move on to the next iteration of whatever they're working on next, which is detailed in this little document they wrote. And I think this has happened before. They did this with Uncharted 4. The last update, that survival update, that was it. They did not update the multiplayer anymore. They wanted to utilize their ambition and move on. So I don't think that Bungie is wrong for assessing how is this going to work in the long term and make a lot of money if Jim Ryan wants this. And I don't think that Naughty Dog is wrong trying to move on to the next project, and longevity for multiplayer might not be something they want to do because they don't want to stifle creative vision by working on a project forever. But I think maybe the silver lining is having this team work on multiplayer as Naughty Dog grows. And it's been downsized, so Lord knows how long this is going to take and how much manpower this multiplayer needs. But I think they need a dedicated multiplayer team to work on all this stuff, and they could focus on the longevity as Naughty Dog got bigger. It did get bigger, it did grow. I don't know if it's enough, but hell, we'll fucking see. Alright, so they said the game needs more time. Understandable. A lot of people are very ticked off at this delay, and honestly, at least it's not a situation where it came out and it's broken. This is a game we barely seen anything of outside of what I would constitute as an overglorified alpha. Therefore, I can't get mad at this because it's unreleased. So if it's like an eternal delay beforehand, take all the time you need, be the cooks in the kitchen, make a great product, and I will support it. Our team will continue to work on the project, which is this downsized team, as well as other games in development. They said games, plural. So multiple things to come. I'm getting excited here. I'm getting excited, including a brand new single player experience, which I assume this is that little medieval fantasy game Naughty Dog wants to do. Strays Cross, I heard Druckmann is taking inspiration from Miyazaki from Elden Ring, so I assume that's going to be integrated somewhat into this project. Maybe they want to do their first sort of open world tackling. It could happen, but they said brand new single player experience, which is not Last of Us Part 3. But they said games plural, so it could be this new single player IP and then The Last of Us Part 3, and I think that would satisfy everybody, considering we've been waiting for a while on news. And all the devs said they're cooking, everything's great in the kitchen. I just want to see it. As a fan, I just want to see it. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passion for our games. It continues to drive us. Basically saying, you know, thank you for rolling in the cash, the dough, the dinero. And we will not be at Summer Games Fest. We will not be at any other showcase for the time being. Maybe, I don't know, the end of the year could change things. I'm thinking that this was a preemptive response because once again, Sony first party studios have been very quiet. Outside of Insomniac carrying their back and carrying the spine of PlayStation with that Spider-Man 2 gameplay, nothing else has been shown. So I wouldn't say that everything is in dire straits. It's just gonna take time. We're talking about AAA studios, a lot of money, time, and investment, a lot of time to make sure these games are polished and they come out fine. I think at bare minimum now, people just want the experience to be polished up and polished to a mirror sheen and shit. So that's what they expect from Sony first party. They put themselves in the pole position to witness quality. Therefore, I don't think that they should rush themselves on Factions Part 2 if it's not quite done, because what are people going to do? They're going to complain if it looks even remotely mid, right? So give them time to do all this shit. Personally speaking though, it's just kind of weird and I'm kind of 50-50. On the one hand, I get Bungie putting in more input for live service because they know how it works and that's what Sony wants. At the same time, they're focusing on this whole escape from Tarkov story multiplayer mode, and I think at the core it would be great to have like a co-op multiplayer story or something of that effect where it's like more grand than it appears to be. But I think I can speak for myself here, but I think I just wanted The Last of Us Part 2 mechanics peppered in with Factions multiplayer gameplay. That's all I wanted. It was nothing too much of the height of ambition, just new maps, new guns, maybe some co-op, maybe an affected mode where you're like with your team and you're fighting clickers and bloaters and rat kings and you're having a merry ass fucking time with your teammates, like fighting for survival. That's what I wanted. More modes on top of Factions multiplayer, and we know that it's popular, so people saying, oh, it's gonna be a bad game anyway. What the fuck is Factions? Factions was born good. You see what I'm saying? So what would be mid about it unless it didn't live up to that standard of Factions? That's the only thing that would happen. And so far, we haven't seen a lick of gameplay to judge that opinion, to have that analysis. So I find that to be quite weird. Like, we just wanted more of the same, but expanded and built upon, instead of this whole, oh, everything's got to be like Fortnite, so we got to put in V-Bucks and micros and all this other jazz, which I don't really care about, and we got to extend the longevity. I get that updates and longevity and people like that. I talked about this before with how a game as a service is coordinated. You gotta have the 3 pillars. Great gameplay, but that should be first and paramount. Support, so new maps, new modes. It should be a clear and distinct roadmap so you know what you're getting before all the updates cease. And I guess it kind of boils down to luck and also hitting those targets. So you can't lie to the consumer and say, oh fuck, well, we got this roadmap, so we're gonna have this out in June, and then you don't say anything else till December, and you keep making apology letters, and that's what causes distrust amongst the community, right? It fucking happens all the time when people miss the mark, and you can't miss the mark. Have a clear roadmap and understand it and know when this content is coming, but the community will follow if the game is good. Longevity, it all depends. Sometimes it's luck. Well, actually, I'm not even gonna say sometimes. I would say a lot of the time. To have a core player base last for about years, that is rare. Your game has to be that good to play to keep that player base, and people are gonna come back like crack. They're gonna keep coming back over and over again if the game is fantastic, which was Factions 1. So I don't agree, oh, we gotta reevaluate the quality. Factions would have been good, guaranteed, no problem of the sort, and it has a player base, and that would have stuck, but they want to reach out more. I'm guessing with live service, they want to go outside of the realm of what Factions is known for, which is the hardcore player base. They want to go outside of that and appeal to everybody. So the casuals, the ones who really like multiplayer offerings, skins, whatever it takes, and have that fun battle royale mode. Now, I like Fortnite. I'm not gonna say Fortnite ruined multiplayer gaming like some other people have, but I will say the era of tacked on multiplayer is sadly dead. And I don't like this philosophy. I feel like, of course, you can have a fun live service title, but when you try to be more than that, it's going to take more work, it's going to take more manpower, it's going to take more planning. And some people just want to move on to other things with their creativity and their scope and their teams. So I'm like almost at a loss for words. I'm 50-50. I understand what is going on. One side wants live service to thrive, the other side wants to make the multiplayer experience, put it in there, and move on to their next iteration of game that they're making, whether it's single player affairs or not. Personally speaking, I think that you can still make tacked on multiplayer. It's still room for tacked on multiplayer. It's still room for factions to be like factions and not battle royale. It's room for that. I don't mind more modes and factions. I'm not saying that, and I don't have a problem with Fortnite. I'm just saying that the era of tacked on multiplayer still should be around. It still should be like, hey, if the game gets supported in the long run just for being good, then that's fine, as opposed to saying we gotta monetize this as fast and lightning hard as possible, otherwise we can't really have it out in the span of 4 years. It's not good enough. We have to go back to the drawing board yet again and find out how do we really monetize that, and that's gonna take so much manpower when a game could have been out by this point and people could have been playing it, and it still could have had a solid foundation. But I understand if you want that game to survive online, you're gonna have to do support, and you're gonna have to really think about it if it catches on, and what happens if it becomes more than tacked on multiplayer. What are you gonna do then? So there's always minds and thinking and creative visions going on, and I just hope for the factions too, for the sake of this game, that they catch on to a vision that people wanted, which is obviously the expansion of Factions Part 1 and having more maps and modes and co-op and all that fun shit. Put your little battle royale mode in without it taking like 10 years to accomplish. Anyway, this is Renegade Operative signing out. I have finally talked about my opinions on The Last of Us factions, and the internal delay that has occurred. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm not going to lie, I've been really looking forward to this multiplayer for the longest time, and to hear it's delayed yet again is a bit worrying. It's a bit concerning, and I understand that aspect. At the same time, I'm going to let the company cook and see what they can produce, and if it is still a quality product with that reevaluation in mind of longevity, then I'm gonna play it, and maybe I'll play it for as long as I did the original. I just think that Factions was already good, therefore just deliver that, but fully functional, balanced, and obviously more maps and more modes and more just to have a bite on, as opposed to just saying, hey, it's ride or die on Battle Royale and that's it. And I just don't like that the future is hinging on that for some of these live service games. But I trust in Bungie. They know what they're doing. I just hope that the development of Factions does not suffer because of this. That's the main concern. That's the main worry. Hopefully this downsized team can take what has been worked on for the last 4 years and create something compelling and riveting that we all wanted since The Last of Us Part 2, because we've been waiting that damn long. I am signing out. You can find me on social media in the links below, and tell me what you think of Factions 2 getting internally delayed and downsized, and they're going to take their time to work on it, so it might not even be revealed this year on Outbreak Day. If we get anything, we just might get, I forgot they called it The Last of Us Day, but nothing might get revealed there, which is disappointing. It is disappointing news seeing this, but there is an optimism inside of me, and hopefully all these projects being worked on is really, really spectacular. So I will see you guys next time. Later.